Okay, so I'm going to take back over. We're going to have our last hour. We have some people with us today that are some of the other winners, and I'm going to get to them in just a second and have them pop on and say hello as we go through this last bit of data. So people have always asked the Learning Council to be futurists. You know, we kind of have been as we used to be on the road, talking about the direction of the market. So let me just kind of go over some of the data in terms of the trends horizon that we're seeing. And I mentioned this a little bit early in the day, but we don't really know where the total revenue is going to go for K-12 in 2021. I'm not expecting it as Learning Council research to drop significantly. We don't see that on the horizon. We do see potentially another stimulus money coming in. We also know there's a lot of CARES Act money that's not spent or even claimed yet. So expect that to come into play in 2021. We also expect there to be more cutting of paper resources and instructional staffing that was placed not on the front line of digital teaching and learning, or maybe just not replacement of retirees in favor of moving money behind more technology. We also think that there is a possibility in a lot of places that you won't see money that used to go into big construction still going into big construction. Some of that money is potentially going to mutate into technology, which is where we see those two that are circled red on this slide. That's where we see some of the growth coming. So if you are expecting there to be more budget magically in EdTech, it won't happen. It's going to come from a structural budget shift and some CARES Act and maybe another stimulus, but the bulk of it is going to come from structural budget shift. It always has. It probably always will. So that's our statement on that for everyone that's still on the line. Here's our other expectations, and this is big. Hardware and major software systems is going to level out in 21. It'll still be plus 400 million. This is replacement dollars. So to spend the same amount plus some in another year after people already bought most of the devices this past year is telling you we're going to move in 2021 to full market saturation of devices. We're expecting that. And then we're expecting the replacement market to model that over time. We're also expecting another thing to happen, and Dr. Standerfer from Buckeye talked about this a little bit. They have high value machines. And Katrina from SHI talked about esports. You can't really do that kind of stuff on a Chromebook. So we're also expecting part of the drive for this spend is to also have a lot of districts realize they want to now level up to the more expensive machines so they can run CTE value software on those machines remotely. So that they don't have to have kids come in the building all the time. And because we're seeing a structural change in the use of space and time that we don't think is ever going to go away, we are going to see that be a trend for the next 5 or 6 years where Chromebooks are going to start being replaced by high value machines. So if this is the first time you've heard that from the Learning Council, and we're sticking by it. The next thing we're going to see is digital curriculum spend increasing from 13.1 to 15.1, a full $2 billion increase. And the reason for that going into 2021 is because so many people join the fray with hardware, but they don't have enough software to justify the utility of the devices, and they're still doing, 7 hours of Zoom meetings all day long, and they're wearing people out, and parents are getting upset, and they're deciding to homeschool instead because it doesn't work. And so they're going to have to buy the software needed, like D2L was just talking about. They're going to have a D2L level sophistication in order to accentuate the fact that some learning is synchronous and some has to be asynchronous. Otherwise, you have that problem of wearing everybody out. And also a lot of other digital curriculum spend. We know all of the courseware providers are going gangbusters right now. We're expecting that to continue through 2021. The other thing that we want everybody to realize is that 2020 was definitely a big leap year. When we averaged out where districts were in terms of their sophistication of the 1,000 or so that we looked at, in 2019, we were sort of the middle. Now we took a major leap into the late majority, and we're not all the way to the end yet, but there's definitely coming software complexity. We're expecting a lot of software to be sold, like I just said, but also we're going to start seeing now the dissolution of that traditional whole group service model in favor of competency-based learning. And disaggregated, what we call the disaggregated Internet of Instructs. We talked a little bit about that today with some of the panelists, where they're thinking of the whole internet and all teachers everywhere. Some of them retired, some of them still working. Maybe they're in another district, but they're used over here. That network, that sort of gig economy of using everybody from everywhere is coming. And it means that it will shift the way you think about your own bureaucracy, so that they're not just the ones walled in and punching a time card, so to speak, they're everywhere. And that mutation is already starting to happen in the smallest districts who can't get the people they need anyway, and the largest districts who want to matrix in people from outside for certain custom responsibilities. We've talked about this before, but the education transformation stage that was talked about in terms of the expo side of learning, Ben Faubert mentioned this, that is the end point. We've rolled that out a couple years ago. We started with strategy, and then for the next 6 years or so, we got all the way to the end point. We're now at the point where we've brought in the rest of the market. So we're going to be continuing to talk about barriers, but we're passing those barriers because devices are out now almost everywhere. And we're moving into needing to educate the entirety of the market, all of the rest of K-12 teachers and administrators about what they're really dealing with. What are the definitions? So that is why the EduJedi rolled out the new dictionary, the new set of standards, and the new design model for instruction. The other thing to know is that when we estimated the responses and tried to look at the future, we also want to make sure that you understand most districts think of themselves as further along the continuum than they're actually estimated to be, which means we still have a long ways to go. I'm not going to go through all of this, but 42% of districts think that they've got the majority of a personalized network model and they're nonlinear by mastery. That's not true. They're still doing mostly whole group. And in terms of being pyramidically organized versus workflow and skills organized, 46% of our respondents said they were, more towards that workflow. No, only about 15% by our estimate is moved in the direction of becoming more workflow oriented. So we still have a long way to go in terms of sophistication. Also, in terms of the character of their digital transition, in terms of their organizing principle, 40% responded that their basic organizing principle is their routing and digital workflow versus the old style of basically organizing around the schedule, buildings, and people. The estimate by the Learning Council is only about 15% of, or about 15 is estimated as how far along they've moved on that 100% continuum versus people thinking that, at 40%, they've moved all the way up to that level. Then in terms of the view of achievement, the actual estimated is 30, whereas achievement estimated by districts responding was 47, that they're viewing achievement from the student or parent view versus only from the teacher and school view. This is a paradigm shift that we're expecting to happen as more digital curriculum comes in. And then in terms of the space impact, having learning define the space as needed versus the buildings define the space, 49% is what the responses were. The actual estimation by Learning Council is only about 40. And then the final thing in that whole range of questions was, what was the character? Are you still prescriptive? Are you telling kids what they have to learn only? Here's your skew of things, and you have to sort of go along to get along. Or are you doing what Lammersville talked about, which is allowing a lot more pick your flavors of each thing? 37% were saying they've moved all the way up to 37%. Our actual estimate is 20. So we still have a huge 80% way to go for the bulk of the market. And then in terms of evaluation, are you using personal achievement scales versus still just doing all your testing, evaluation, and labeling of students based on where they're at? Still a long ways to go, but not that big of a spread. Going into this, we thought it would be a much larger spread, but we are hearing states talk about putting on ice their usual way of testing and going with different methodologies. So we're hopeful for this particular area. So the signs of change are, there's a lot of computing devices in the market. There's a ton of new digital curriculum brands cited as in use. There's big shifts in training and purchasing behavior. There's a faster rate of maturity than's ever been there. But the negative is most administrators don't understand where it's all going. They don't really understand or grasp the concept of expo centers of learning, the disaggregation of space and time, and even staffing. They still rely on teachers almost entirely as a delivery mechanism only. And that's not to say you don't need teachers, right? I just want to make sure that's clear. You need teachers, but you need to use them as a service mechanism behind your distribution via technology, really because it's an efficiency issue, so you don't wear your teachers out, and you can drive towards full personalization. So what's next is two different modes. Back to basics is needed for the whole country in terms of understanding what they're looking at, and a stronger transition for the more sophisticated districts, like you heard from today, all our Eddi winners, to finally move to true personalized learning workflow. And we need to have deeper, more intellectual conversations about the network model. You heard a little bit of that today. That's really the top end of the market. And then understanding what you have to be to remain competitive right now, because there is a huge loss to alternative education. This is, like I said, in the hundreds of millions, even for some districts, billions nationwide. And then how do you remove the cost structure by either reallocation of staffing or, like I said, the capital expenditure budget. So let's talk about some of our other winners of the Edu levels. If you're on the line right now, I'm going to ask my cohort here to unmute everybody on the attendee side that we know is on the line right now. The Edu gainers, they have a certain characteristic pattern. I won't get too detailed into that because you guys can read these slides and I want to talk to people. Edu innovators, another certain pattern, next highest level in rank. Then the achievers are another higher level of rank. And then the knights. This is the highest level that's been attained so far, according to our research, moving all the way to Expo Centers of Learning. We don't have any Edu Masters yet or Grandmasters. We're hoping for the best in the next several years. But we have now 5 districts who've made it all the way to Knight status, which is a huge accomplishment. So the gainers this year of the 65, in your handout in packet, all of the awards are in there, and the numbers after each one of these gainers is the page number that they're on for their award. They will be getting their award independently as well. But these are all your winners for the year. A lot of these, in the reading of their responses, expressed the difficulties that they had to go through. Some of them were awarded really because we could see in their responses that they went through sort of a wall of fire to get to the other side, to be able to deliver service at all with technology. That showed that they, a high willingness to do whatever it took. And that's in contrast to the fact that we also know there are districts out there who sort of threw in the towel when we went into quarantines, literally weren't providing any learning at all. So I'm going to turn my camera on now and take a drink of water. I'm going to invite people to come join us in the last part of this hour to discuss what's been happening. This is also showing you my screen. Our innovators, our achievers, and our knights. St. Vrain is added into the knights because they made knight status last year. And if they're on the line, we want to hear from them. But again, I'm going to have you unmute yourself, or we'll be unmuting you, so you can share with us kind of your wins for the year, because we really consider that if you've made it into one of the levels of Edu, you're leading the nation, and we want to make a big deal out of it for you. So I think one of the ESCs is on the line. We're going to make sure you're unmuted so you can share. I'm going to go through here and unmute as many as I can. David Paul Zimmerman, I'm unmuting you. You're a former winner. Elizabeth Hamming, Jessica Guerra, Carla Burkholder, who is a winning Edu from before. Simon Rice. Simon, if you want to share out, you're one of the winners on the gainer list. Simon, I don't know if you know, but we can hear you. You can hear us.
Okay. Well, I was recently invited to this experience, but I just got my job 2 weeks ago, so I'm not really able to talk about this. I think Jessica Guetta could speak more to the gainer experience than I could.
Okay, Jessica, you're muted. If you can unmute, you could also join. I'm going to find your award. There you are. So you're a combined service district for, I think, 106,000 some students, and you're awarded gainer level status based on, helping strengthen support, and particularly in training in the motivation behind all the districts that you service. So Jessica, if you want to say a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, this was actually a huge surprise for us. So we were thoroughly amazed at just, getting this gainer award. We have some really good specialists at our district, and I will say, it's kind of been the hot topic with the whole COVID-19 going on. Our specialists, all content specialists, just not our instructional technology, they really stepped up their game. I mean, we went right into it head on. This is what we need to do to support our LEAs and make sure that they were able to service their students and what best needs the students needed. And we were there. I mean, it was literally a 24/7, it's been a 24/7 job for us. And so we're excited. And actually after today, I'm kind of my brain is overwhelmed with all of the things that nationwide what's going on, and it's given me a bunch of ideas. So thank you for, inviting us and having us here.
Yeah, glad to have you here, and grateful for the work you've done. So thank you. You're going to be getting this badge gainer that you can put on email or you can put on your website.
Great, thank you.
And the whole certificate, yeah. All right, so I think David Paul Zimmerman's on the line, one of our former winners from Renton Prep. Hi, David. David, do you want to share? Because it looks like you're unmuted, but I'm not sure if you're listening in or not. Hi, David. Maybe not. Maybe he's typing in the background. Okay, so I guess not. We'll mute him back up. I think Carla Burkholder, I don't know if she's paying attention or not, but Carla, you're unmuted on my side if you want to unmute on your side and share. And Simon Rios, you're unmuted as well. Hi, Carla. Carla, I can't hear you. Maybe there's something wrong with your mic, but it looks like you're unmuted on my side if you want to speak up. No. Okay. Hearing email going on in the background, that's always interesting. Okay, so let me come back over here. If there's any last minute sharing that needs to be done, I would like to call on any one of our panelists still on the line, Ben or Dr. Standifer or Heather. Hi, Ben.
Hi. Yeah, I could say a couple things. I think I feel like sometimes that we're a little bit further down the line than some just because we got an earlier start, but I try to pinch myself and remind myself I can't get comfortable. I think that part of this journey is that in education overall, we need to continually evaluate our programs for their effectiveness and then look out there at what's new. And so one of the things that we're challenging ourselves with right now, while we are currently using an online curriculum provider, our teachers are getting more and more comfortable offering online courses, and they're looking into developing their own online courses that are in-house. And so we're looking to use our learning management system and any other technology that may be available to us to start developing our own in-house curriculum, because we really feel like any online curriculum that is offered to kids needs to be teacher facilitated anyway. The UC system in California, demands that we have teacher facilitated online courses, but I think that that's one thing we're working on. And the other thing that has been mentioned a number of times is we're really looking towards competency-based education. We kind of have a mastery-based system here at the high school that's site-wide, and we're really looking to push it even further into the competency-based, identifying those competencies students need in each class, and then looking to create to join the national consortium of competency-based education, moving towards gradeless report cards. We have a couple of piloted gradeless classrooms on our campus, and looking at a gradeless transcript moving forward.
The Gradeless Transcript is going to be revolutionary. That's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to that. That would be a mega shift.
Yeah, and I think it already exists, and there are a number of. It's mostly, I think, almost all 99.9% private schools that are doing it because it's easy for them to do. And my push has always been public schools should do this. This just because we're public schools doesn't mean we should push forward and shouldn't push forward and do these things. It is our mandate as educators to do what's right by kids, not just put what's already been there. That factory-based model of education. We would be remiss in our calling as educators if we just sat around and presented that to our community and said it's good, because it's not. We have a mandate to really move forward and be innovative in our approaches to not just teaching, but to reporting what our students have learned.
Yeah, I totally agree. You have to keep pushing the envelope right now. And if no one was doing that, just understanding change management and sort of the arc of how industries roll over to something else. Just look at the retail industry. Amazon's incursion has not been, sure, it took like 20 years, but now they've almost wiped out retail. The incursion of the alternative has come in, and there's not enough response to it. You're responding, you're pushing the envelope. That's what the Edu Jedi program is all about, is who's pushing the envelope, who's questioning the norms, who's saying, this isn't working. People are going over there to consumerize the learning, or they're just opting out and doing anything else that they can. Why are they doing that? Why aren't we responsive? Why aren't we changing? So that's really the whole thing. And just to have 65 getting awarded, there's a few of them on the screen right now, and you can download that PDF. That's a huge thing. We really have had a game-changing year. It's been a horrible pandemic year that's still going on, but your pushing forward is really appreciated, Ben and Heather that's on the line. I'm going to call on David Zimmerman. David, I see your hand is raised, but you're self-muted. If you want to unmute, you're one of our early Edu Jedi, but I see your hand was raised, so I'm going to make sure you can unmute. Yeah, you have to hit the little circle that looks red with a microphone on it so you can unmute, so we can hear you.
I'm trying.
Yeah, there you go. Now I can hear you.
Oh, hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Michelle was not here. She actually got a group of students to head back to the campus since we actually closed last Tuesday. She had already projected us closing this for 5 weeks and going strictly online. So it's worked out. It was coming. So we actually were able to start 3 weeks early and do a lot of outside stuff. So it's been a challenging year for us. I mean, you know our history, what we've been doing, and pretty much everything we've worked toward has been kind of boxed and set on the side. And I think Michelle's in the process in the next 2 or 3 months of a complete reset. We have moved to gig. Our admissions director, our school office is now in Ohio, even though we're now in Renton. And we didn't want to lose the staff that we had, and they were exceptional. It's worked out really well. Our math instructor is about 200 miles away, and he's doing a phenomenal job. And I think we're going to be moving more and more toward that gig, finding those experts around the globe, and letting them design programs, giving them a lot of freedom. The great thing about it is a lot of these are public school teachers who've not had the freedom they have with us to actually dream and work with some ideas they've had for like 20 years maybe, and just haven't had the flexibility to be able to do it from their home. So I think overall our students have done, I'd say there's about 60-40, 60% they're just zooming ahead. Many of them already finished their whole year of math. Moving into December, they have a lot of freedom, individualized. There's about 40% of the kids this has just been a nightmare for, and we have some really great kids, but sitting in front of a computer, not having interaction with students has been a real challenge. We see that happen this last week as we go on to fully online. So I have no great ideas of what's going to transpire. I just know that we're at a point where we like the challenge. And I really appreciate some of the things that you've been sharing. And, we definitely continue to follow what you're doing. But it's really an unknown for us. For us, staffing has been the issue, not having the kids. We have 4 more kids that want to get in than we have room for, but we always had that issue, but staffing and the skills. And we're just moving out of the credentialed teacher focus. We're now moving into the marketplace and finding individuals who have specific gifts and talents and skills and passion, but may not have a teaching credential. And we'll just see what happens with the state. They're watching us pretty closely.
Yeah, you've always been a leader at Renton Prep, and Michelle has got her book out about artificial intelligence, teaching artificial intelligence in the classroom, and that's become really an interesting point for a lot of school districts, because it's not just about learning it as a student or teaching it as a teacher. Now it's like it's getting embedded in systems everywhere.
It is. Yeah.
Which is really the future, and that's what we're going to see happen within the next 3 years, is huge volume of embedded algorithmic inference in systems. Yeah.
And then individualized, personalized becomes much more appropriate when you have that background. It was just published in the Gulf states and in Taiwan. They're doing a lot of translations, so it's been well received, but it just opens up other doors, privacy issues for sure. I mean, it is an interesting time to be alive.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, I've always admired you guys. You were one of our first Eddi Jedi winners, survey winners. Well, 2 years ago you guys sort of stepped in?
I think it was 2 years. Yes, I think it was 2 years ago.
The winner, yeah. So thanks for joining with us today. I'm going to check my questions panel here. I've got some flashy red. Okay, so Leslie, let's make sure you're unmuted so that you can.
Hey, Leilani.
Yeah.
I was just going to comment that one thing that I would say positive has come out of the whole COVID. Not that any of us are liking distance learning or school closures in any way, but having been now one-to-one for over 5 years, I think people had reached a comfort level where they weren't working hard to be innovative. They had found a technology level, some of them much higher than others, teacher-wise, that they were comfortable with in the classroom. And having gone to distance learning has reignited all of them's need, from the highest flyers to the most hesitant. It has reignited their need to learn and innovate. And I think we're going to come out of this on the other end from a pedagogy standpoint better off because of kind of this forced online for hopefully what is a short time.
And I can't disagree with that. And the fact that we have like every single teacher getting in there, we're always going to see things like we've been seeing in some districts where there'll be a new art level. I call it the golden age of teaching is coming. So some of the districts have taken their smart boards and let them go home with teachers. And then they were also doing things like buying from, I think it's, I want to say Sphero, but it's a little robot that basically is a camera, unlike a stationary one on your laptop. It follows you around. So if you're lecturing, you can still be mobile in front of your whiteboard, doing your things that you want to be doing. And then that's all recorded. So you do it once. if you have, you're teaching 6th grade math, you only got to do it once. So then what happens is, as a teacher, you don't have to keep doing the same lecture. Now you can refine the art of the direct instruction around it. So the move to do digital is not just digital as a tool, it moves the teacher into a service structure change that they're not used to. They're used to repeating themselves
Correct.
over and over. They're still needed, but they don't need to maybe do it all the time or over and over. And that has definitely surfaced in higher ed. Higher ed's taking a huge beating right now, way worse than K-12. And I'm expecting them to enter what I call the world of matrix sooner than K-12. Like David was just talking about in Tampa Prep, his world is a matrix world. He'll use people from anywhere. And some of the other districts are starting to think that way. Maybe they'll go to somebody like, Wendy, I think you're still on the line. If you could unmute, you go to somebody like Edison Learning, who's got some school stuff and some teachers doing some stuff, and you're like, it's great you got all that stuff, Wendy. I want these 3 things. I want to take you and plug you into this node and this node and this node. And then I'm going to do other nodes from over here and plug it in. So Leslie, what you're saying is that the consciousness rose, and now everybody is into, I'm remodeling myself. I'm remodeling the house that I am as a teacher. I don't think there's anything that could be healthier for an organization. You're going to see some magic. And I'm sure you're excited about that, right?
I am. I can already say that we're seeing some magic with teachers. And so, yes, that's the exciting part of what's happening amongst all the stress.
Yeah. And as a leader, I'm sure, because I know you're like very cuddly as a person. You're probably going to people and going, yay, and raising that up. And that's really what leaders need to do the most now, is what you do, Leslie, which is just make a big deal out of the things that are happy and good, right?
Agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Wendy, are you still on the line? I'd like you to comment about that matrix point, because all these districts, they're all winners. A lot of them are brand new. And one of the reasons we got so interested in Edison Learning was because we know they're going to need a shoulder to lean on to sort of matrix you in. So Wendy, are you still on the line? Do you want to unmute? I got to make sure you're unmuted on my side. It looks like you're self-muted, but if you're still there, feel free to comment and unmute. Otherwise, I'm going to call for any other comments. And if there's no more, I'm going to encourage people to download the full set of all these winners and what they did, because I know you want to learn from each other. And then realize that we're going to profile the Knights and some of the achievers, maybe a few of the innovators and a few of the gainers in our next special report, as well as running a lot of stories online and getting out major press releases.
Hey,
Wendy.
Wendy, I was able to come off of mute. I was battling with my yeah, the model that you and Leslie were discussing, absolutely. I really view it as being able to almost go shopping and pick out the pieces from each vendor that you want the best. Or, everybody knows that certain providers have different strengths. And so if you could pick these different strengths where you can get exactly like you want, so that you can customize and build what you want, but you're not having to do it from scratch.
Yeah.
That's really where we're heading, and that's an ideal way for a district to get exactly what they want that's best for their kids.
Yeah, and maybe they don't want to build it all from scratch. They want to find out what's best practices in actually online learning when they've been used to being a classroom teacher for so long. That's a really good point. And then Heather, do you want to make some final points here as our newest Knight?
Thanks, Leilani. I just wanted to mention, since we have a large group of movers and shakers here on this platform, and as I mentioned earlier when I was talking, one of the things that's a little more challenging is getting vendors to truly make high quality products in all facets, getting them to partner with other products so that you can aggregate and disaggregate data in meaningful ways, and that seamless ease of use so that you're really focusing on the instruction. And I think we're starting to become, I mean, another upside of the pandemic could be that we are starting to reach critical mass for having power to have these conversations with vendors about how do we come together and work on this so that we can use technology in a way that is not duplicative. And so I have to look at this dashboard on this vendor for this product and this one over here, and oh, but it'll only do Google SSO over here, but we only link with ClassLink, but we only link with, and finding ways that we can work together to really make smarter. In many ways, the same way as Common Sense Media has really worked, and the group here, site group here in California, have really worked to make data privacy and data security really more of a statewide and a national movement, and that has empowered us to set some standards with vendors for what we want. So I just wanted to throw that out there, put it on everybody's radar. I think that your organization, Leilani, is a great place for us to come together and start making a difference in this arena.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I agree. I think we're evolving. You're at the point already where you're seeing the space between the things, like I mentioned earlier. You're seeing, you've gone forward and you've got things and people and stuff in place, but now you're starting to rise above that and look down and see there's workflow issues, there's little security baubles hanging out that aren't working, and some of the things are not holding up their weight. And you're starting to build in your mind a picture of what is really truly going to be workable. And probably in your mind, you're also building the algorithms, right? Like, if this, then that will be this way. And then if this kid drops off over there, then they need to automatically be shuttled over here. That's all coming, but we have to demand it. Mm-hmm. We have to start pointing out, like you said, what's missing and what we're feeling in pain. Because as you lead as leaders, you're hearing back from your teachers like, this is hard. Why am I teaching to these live kids in front of me? And then also I'm on camera and I'm like checking 81 dashboards, and this is crazy. You got to hear that for what it really is. And so I'm glad you're thinking that way.
Yeah, well, thank you for your help with that.
Well, I want to add to that too. It goes back to one of the data points that you pointed out earlier, Leilani, that some of the districts think they are further along as far as their baseline in knowledge. And I've had conversations with so many where they think they have a greater understanding. And when I'm talking about to them with integrating their content, and after 5 conversations, and once we've already started down the line, I'll get to a different person and I learn, oh, wait a minute, you have Google Classroom? Well, we could have integrated with that. And then you just have one login for your kids. And part of it too is also that I think after the pandemic, that knowledge base will be so much greater than it was before, just because everybody's being forced to deal with that. I think that'll also help push those conversations and demand those conversations with your vendors and your providers, whereas they just weren't that knowledgeable prior.
Yeah, they weren't up to that point. And so what's a positive thing is that they think they are. They think they're getting there, right? But like Heather was just saying, they don't actually see those fine-tuned, they don't see the gaps. They're not up above it looking down. They're doing one thing at a time. They're like laying bricks. So we do have a long ways to go. And the sophistication that you guys at Edison, I mean, you have applied the science of online learning. The courses you built are very tried, whereas others are trying to build stuff from scratch and they're like, woohoo, we're just gonna figure it out ourselves. Okay, then they eventually run into the wall and they have to back themselves up and learn all over again. It's a time, we're in a moment. So I want to end here with just thanking all of you guys and also giving everyone that's a winner big round of applause. Like I said, all the big announcements will go out. Last time we announced our survey results and our winners, we had some 8 million views online when all the other media picked it up. It was not small. So this is a big deal. If you haven't and you're on the line downloaded from your handouts right now, please do, because that's the list of all the winners in the handout. We also have the dictionary which we're going to be pushing really hard all through 2021 and teaching people about it and going through every little stage of it and asking all of you to, as Edu Jedi, to join the meetings, because we're going to edit this whole thing 9 ways to Sunday and add definitions and what's missing and keep refining it and using it as an educational tool nationwide. Your stories as winners are coming out in 2021 in the Overcoming Digital Transition Barrier stories, and then a new edit next year of the dictionaries coming out as the digital learning experience standards and definitions. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being Edu Jedi. Thank you for being awesome. I'm going to be ending off here a little bit early. I think that's okay with everyone. It's been like 7 hours, so I'm a little worn out. But I really want to thank all of you for being with us. And again, another round of applause for everyone. And goodbye for now. See you next time.